The ending of the First World War saw the New South Wales Government Railways faced with this problem. A good one that saw their funding go up significantly. See, as the population grew and intercity travel became more common, rail services started to be put under pressure to become faster and more reliable, and capable of hauling longer and heavier trains. Of course, they could, if they wanted to, look to their northern or southern neighbours for a design such as the C-17 to fill the void, but a New South Welshman seeking support from a Queenslander, let alone a Victorian, now that wasn't on. No, they needed their own vehicle. And so, the New South Wales C-36 class locomotive was conceived, a steamer that would come to define passenger express travel in Eastern Australia, and thankfully, one that still exists in multiple forms today. Welcome back to 5 Minute History, the weekly series where patrons choose the topic. We are back to the CHOOs today, covering the New South Wales C-36 class. Now, this patron was a little interesting in their request. They asked me to cast my Discord whether or not they wanted the 36 or a South African steamer. As you can see, the Discord chose this one, but because I'm feeling like a benevolent internet silly person today, if you guys want, I can cover the SAFA class 25NC as well. Just let me know in the comments below. Built as a class of 75 two-cylinder coal-fired superheated steam engines with a 460 wheel arrangement, the C-36 class entered service in 1925 and quickly became the backbone of the NSW GR's express passenger fleet. The C-36 class itself wasn't anything too fancy in terms of continued development. It was essentially a refined evolution of the earlier C-35 class locomotives introduced in 1914. While the 35s had been competent performers, by the 1920s their limitations were becoming very clear in the face of train weights and expectations for speed and comfort. So the New South Wales engineers therefore designed and built the C-36 to address these shortcomings, resulting in a locomotive that was more powerful and more efficient for regular service. The initial batch of 10 was constructed at the Everleigh Railway Workshops in Sydney, and they proved to be successful, albeit for some kinks that needed to be ironed out as with all new designs. In total, 65 of the type would be constructed, and most of these were assembled by Clyde Engineering at Granville. Engineers designed the 36 class explicitly for express passenger work with a focus on reliability, serviceability and performance. Their two outside cylinder systems used simple expansion, and they were non-condensing, meaning that exhaust steam passed directly through the blast pipe rather than reusing it. Although this was less fuel efficient than condensing systems, it simplified operations and reduced maintenance complications, which for Australia, particularly during this period, was insanely vital. One of the defining aspects of the C-36 class was its superheated boiler. Now, superheating increases the thermal energy carried by steam, which greatly improves efficiency and increases power output delivered to the cylinders. One important innovation of this design as well was the use of the outside Walsh shirt's valve gear. This type of valve gear, long proven in Britain and other parts of the world, offered simpler lubrication and maintenance compared to other inside mounted systems. The C-36 class was the first mainline locomotive design in New South Wales to adopt this kind of gear system, and it set a pattern that later steam classes would follow. Typically, these CHOOs featured a driver wheel diameter of 69 inches, nice, or about 1.75 metres in real measurements. The original boiler pressure was 180 pounds per square inch as well, later increased to around 200 psi in many rebuilt locomotives. From their introduction in 1925, the C-36s quickly established themselves when it came to major express passenger services across New South Wales. They were assigned to premier services such as the Newcastle Flyer, and later to the Southern and Northern Expresses, along with vital mail trains, which is a testament to their reliability. First-hand accounts from the crews state that the C-36 class was capable of impressive speeds. Now, this is true, but to take it with a grain of salt, because some of these men claimed that the 36 was overall faster than the 38, which is questionable given the 38's design and purpose. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because these claims just form part of the lore surrounding the class, and reflect the high esteem in which they were being held by crews, and it's reflected in the public. Everyone loves the 36. I can attest to that in person, given how I saw the size of the crowds that these two engines drew in late 2025 on a running day. The 36 wouldn't be just limited to intercity services as well, as it would be deployed on long-distance journeys, including trialled through services from Sydney to Albury. They were similarly dispatched across major rural lines northward towards Armidale, on the main north route, westward on central services, and even as far north as South Grafton following the opening of the Grafton Bridge over the Clarence River. It was World War II though that really showed just how important and effective these were, as they took up an enormous amount of the burden across New South Wales, helping produce things like the Boomerang, the AC-1 Sentinel and the Bathurst-class corvettes and more, hauling cargo back and forward. In the post-war years though, particularly by the 1950s, newer and more powerful locomotives began to take over, and the 36 was relegated to slower passenger services, more mail trains and light freight work. Following electrification of key main lines and the arrival of diesels in the 1950s, the C-36 class was gradually stepped aside entirely. Withdrawals began in January 1959, although some did briefly return to service in 1966 to haul heavy wheat trains following a record harvest. The final members of the class, though, were retired by September 1969, ending more than 4 decades of continuous operation through some of the most demanding events in Australian history. When they first entered service, all C-36 locomotives were painted in the standard unlined black livery of the New South Wales GR. Yet their appearance occasionally varied for special occasions, most notably during the 1927 royal tour of the Duke and Duchess of York, future King George VI. A small group were repainted to royal blue, with yellow and black lining. In 1934, locomotive 3633 was repainted green to haul the Southern Highlands Express. 30 others followed suit, donning the green. World War II austerity measures returned the fleet to plain black, a uniform that most of the class would retain for the remainder of their working lives. Many also carried subtle red linings later in their careers as a nod to earlier decorative schemes. The preserved locomotive 3642, one that I had the pleasure of going on a day trip with alongside my friend It's All Mechanical, who by this point should have uploaded his first video after helping me on my AA20 video, if not, go and spam him and make him do it, is painted in green. Throughout their service life, members of the C-36 class were subject to a series of modifications aimed at enhancing performance or adapting to evolving operational needs, and the class itself became a testbed for new evolving technologies that became commonplace in newer builds, such as the C-38s, which I will eventually do a video on one day. Of the 75 built, there have been 3 preserved to this day. 3609, which was built at Avonlea in 1928, and it's on a static display at the Tunie Roundhouse Railway Museum. 3616, built by Clyde Engineering in 1927, now stored at the New South Wales Rail Museum in Thirlmere, and 3642 joins it, also built at Clyde Engineering in 1926, and preserved in Thirlmere. The 36s that still run occasionally come out to play during events such as the one earlier in 2025 that I discussed, celebrating transport within the city of Sydney, and you can book travel on them. It's not a massive trip, but you get about 2 hours on them, which is pretty fun. If you feel like it, you can even buy themed socks, which I have some myself. They are very comfortable. As for the big question though, and the thing we judge everything on this channel when it comes to trains, when compared to my favourite, the C-17, how trainy does this CHOO look? Well, I would rate it a solid 9.5 on the trainometer, giving it a very high score and making it one of the most trainy trains to train. Yeah, that last sentence is really going to set the foamers off, but you know what, I live for that, so let's go with it. Thank you again to the patrons. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. In 1925, and quickly became the backbone of the NSFW of the NSW GR's express passenger fleet.